Hey guys, welcome to BarZ. My name's Stan, and today we're going to go through the installation of an Argon kit on an American Rotary hotshot. It dawned on me that I never did it, so I thought it's high time I showed you how to install it. You know, I showed you one that was already installed after I did some prototyping and some messing around, but I've streamlined it and made it as easy as possible to put in. So let's get to it. Before I do want to mention that I still have some 360s, not many, but I still have some 360s at the introductory price of $849, so 850 bucks plus shipping gets you a 360 cubic inch, 2000 degree Fahrenheit oven for your shop. So send me an email, barzindustrial@msn.com. And same for these Argon kits. I'm just kind of playing stopgap till American Rotary catches up and starts producing them. So I'm going to fulfill orders until they're ready to start making them themselves. All right, enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to BarZ. My name's Stan, and as promised last week, I'm getting some Argon kits ready, and I thought I'd show you what they're all about. And it occurred to me that I've never shown how to install an Argon kit on a American Rotary hotshot, so we're going to do that today, but I'm going to show you the kits and show you how they differ. I was unable to make the kits universal where they fit the BarZ ovens and the American Rotary ovens. I stayed as universal as I could, but they did end up being different. Now, this is everything that I've manufactured, and some of them are just plain old buyouts. Those are just push to connect fittings. These are for BarZ ovens. These are for American Rotary ovens, BarZ ovens, American Rotary ovens, BarZ ovens. Well, let's start with the old school. We're going to go with the BarZ ovens. I'm going to show you what those are about. This is a 625 Inconel injector. It's got 4 ports on the end, and then the end of it has an Inconel grub screw just to block it off. It's got a high temp O-ring, and then on the exterior of the oven it uses a stainless steel 90 degree fitting. That's 1/8 inch pipe. That's where your push to connect fitting fits in there, and you run off with a piece of plastic tubing. Now, this is for the BarZ oven, and these are the bushings that you get for the BarZ oven. These are just 1/8 inch pipe plugs, but I drill them, bore them, and put a counter bore in there for the O-ring. Okay, so you've got a bushing that you have to install in your oven, and then that slides down, and that dude just plugs in there. All right, and on the BarZ ovens, if you don't flow any gas, if you're not flowing gas through this needle, I tell you in the instructions to pull it out and install this ceramic plug. This is a high temperature ceramic plug, again with the O-ring, and the O-ring is just to keep it from falling down inside. So you're going to slide that into your bushing and plug up the hole if you're not using any gas. Okay, that's all that ceramic rod's for. All right, so you get a ceramic rod, you get a Inconel injector, and the rest of it's stainless. So that one bushing is all you have to install in the oven. So let's move on to the American Rotary hotshot and take a look at that. So I built 10 of those. So I had some people that said, hey Stan, I've got one of your older ovens, and before you die and fall off the face of the planet, I want to get my Argon for my old school hotshot. I'm not planning on dying anytime soon, so I'll make your kits for you. Now this is for an American Rotary, and you'll notice this injector is quite a bit longer, because remember now we've got the air gap in there, so you've got a 2-inch air gap, plus you got 2 inches of insulation to get through. So this Argon tube is much longer, and again, so you can see that on the end, we've got 4 ports on the end, and drilled with a 172 plug in the end, which is no fun in Inconel. I've broken my share of taps tapping that tubing on the end. So again, 625 Inconel, and the bushing that goes in is a little different. This is a it's the same type of bushing. It's a 304 stainless steel bushing, and I drill and ream it, and I drop. But this one has a tube pressed in it. Now this is a stainless steel tube. This isn't. This just sits. This is to take up the air gap. This goes from the inner or the outer skin to the inner skin, and kind of bridges that air gap there. So when you drop your argon in, you don't have any alignment problems. So you can just, because you can drop that in with not trying to line up that inner hole and poking at the insulation and stuff and blowing out your insulation. And the reason is you need to be able to pull this out. If you do burn off in your oven, burn off is when you put something painted in there and maybe run it up to 600 or 700 to destroy the paint, or maybe you're putting oily parts in there and burning off oil or grease. This will build up soot. This will get real sooty and real nasty, and eventually, if you let it go too long, you're going to end up plugging up these little holes. So this argon tube does need to be maintained. Just pull it out and just wipe it down with Scotch-Brite. And the end of it'll get a little discolored, but it won't scale up on you or anything. The Inconel, no way will it scale. But you want to maintain it, maybe blow it out with an air hose or something, but you need to keep this tube clean. So that's why it can't be permanently installed, but we did give you a sleeve to drop it in. Now, the big trick on the American Rotary oven is getting this in square. You have to drill 2 holes. And if you drill them off center, this thing's going to be cocked one way or the other. Outside of it looking dumb, it's not going to affect anything, but we like to get stuff in nice and square. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to install one of these on my personal oven. Serial number 1's getting an Argon kit. So that's what you get with the American Rotary injection setup. And same with the same fittings. We kept everything as universal as possible. It uses 1/4 inch tubing and 1/8 inch pipe thread on everything. So I made 10 American Rotary kits. So there's 10 injectors there, and there's 10 bushings there. And then these are going to be universal. These are your flow meters. I finally got flow meters in after much delay. These came from Dwyer Instruments. And these are the flow meters we use. That's 10 cubic feet an hour, CFH, cubic feet an hour. Everything's expressed by the hour, not the minutes. It's not CFM. But 1/8 inch pipe threads in the back and 2 mounting screws there. All right, and these will be universal between the BarZ ovens and the American Rotary ovens. So these are going to be the same no matter what. And it should be noted that these are not made to take tank pressure. You still have to run a regulator. You can run dual flow meters if you want. You can run your flow meter off of your off your welding rig. Just set it slightly higher. This goes to 10, so maybe set your flow meter on your welder to maybe 15, and then trim the remainder off here right at the oven. Okay. And then you get a bracket. I'll show you the bracket. Now this is still got the laser film on it. This is 304 stainless, laser cut. And you'll see it's got the 2 notched holes here in an arc. That is for the BarZ hotshot. So if you're going to install this on a BarZ hotshot, you just undo the 2 top fan screws, loose and only, slip it in, and let the fan pinch this in between the control cabinet and the fan. Now on the American Rotary oven, it uses these 2 exterior holes here and here, and that slips in between the heatsink. Same location, right behind the control panel, and it slips in between the heatsink and the control cabinet. So I did make these universal. So these are these brackets are universal between the BarZ ovens and the American Rotary ovens. So these will work on either one. And all this does is mount your flow meter. All right, if you're ready to get started, I'm ready to get started. I've shown you everything in the kit. Well, there's tubing. I give you 10 feet of tubing. to connect your flow meter, but you only need about 8 or 10 inches to go between the actual injector and the flow meter, and then from the flow meter to the tank, that's going to leave you with like 9 feet to get to your argon tank. I have no way of knowing what type of fittings you need at your tank. I do give you one extra fitting here that fits the tubing. So whatever you do at your regulator, you need to adapt it down to 1/8 inch pipe thread. Put a little valve on there or a T or something like that. But make sure it's regulated pressure, not tank pressure. Okay? If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get started on putting a Argon kit on an American Rotary hotshot and see what it takes. Okay, the first thing you're going to want to check is your distance between the outer skin and the inner chamber. And you got your argon injector and your sleeve, and I want you to put them together and then just set them here right against the skin about halfway up that thread, and make sure that we've got our ports sticking down into the chamber. So that'll give you an idea of your length. So you can see here we're good. Our ports are just below the surface there, and you can actually adjust that with how far in you install that bushing. So we know we're good on length, and now we're going to give us some layout there. And this is all done with the door closed. We need to align those inner and outer skins, and I don't want to take a chance of the oven shell going out of square when we drill our hole. So keep your oven closed when you're making your holes. So let's get that top laid out. Okay, so we've laid out here center of the working chamber. Not center of this entire lid, not center including the door, center of the working chamber. Working chamber is 10 inches deep, so off of this face right here, you measure back 5 inches, which is half of the chamber, make a mark. And then from the side to side, you go center by center, make a mark. And that's where your argon tube is going to go through, dead center of the oven. I've already scribed a couple lines, and now I've got a snap mark right there in the middle. So I'm going to start off with just a pilot hole and get that in there, and then we have to use a drill guide and go through and make sure we're nice and straight going through to the inner skin and getting that inner skin very straight with this upper hole. And again, I'll say make sure the door is closed when you drill the hole so your shell can't get out of square. Okay, 1/8 inch pilot. We're going to get a longer bit with a drill guide and get ready to go through to the inner skin. Okay, next up we're just going to use an 1/8 inch an aircraft drill. So make sure you get an extra length, and we're going to use a drill guide to hold us nice and square. And you see I've got it chucked up, so I'm only going to go down about another 1/4 inch after I go through that inner skin. Alright, so now we've got a hole through both of those. Now we can open this one up safely because we've already got a hole on the other side. So that's pretty much the only special tool you're going to need is some kind of a long drill bit that's less than 3/16. Okay, next up we're going to go through both of our piloted holes with 3/16 because this inner guide is 3/16. That's what size it is. So we need a hole in the inner skin smaller than the hole in the outer skin. So we're going to go through this outer with a 3/16. The drill bit's not running straight. Gotta love Milwaukee chucks, huh? Still wiggly. Not great, but better. That's a quality drill bit, so I don't know what the deal is. Okay, I'm to the inner skin already. We don't have the block in our way. I'm not saying that we couldn't use the block. We probably could with a larger bit. Yeah, I think we could. And now we're through the inner skin, and now all we need to do is open this up here so we can tap it, and then our little tube's going to go through this outer hole, and the inner hole. And that's another trick into itself. But let's get that drilled out for 1/8 inch NPT. Okay, well, we're piloted all the way through with our 3/16 for the actual tube, and now we just need to open up the outer hole for 1/8 inch pipe. And I'm going to use a step drill. Now, step drills are notorious for not maintaining concentricity. With each step, they can get off center. They can wander unless you use a 2-fluted. This is a double fluted step drill, so it's got flutes on 2 sides. If you use a single-sided step drill, they have a bad tendency to wander. So we're just gonna start slowly opening it up. You could use a drill bit, but the odds of it grabbing and sucking you down into that inner chamber are very good. If you are gonna use a standard drill bit, use a drill stop. I think that might be it. Pipe taps are so forgiving because of the taper, and especially since it's sheet metal. All right, that's going to start good. Yep, that's our size. I just brought that out as a guide and to warn you guys about how grabby sheet metal can be. It's very grabby. And I'm going to use another guide block here. Got to keep this sucker straight. Okay. Let me go get a tap handle for that, and we'll run around. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of lube on the tap. And this is pretty easy because, I mean, like I say, it's just sheet metal, so there's no pressure on this fitting at all. But I just don't want that turkey binding up on me, so. And she's grabbing already. I can feel it. Alright, that is about it. Come on. There we go. And you should be able to kind of feel your way down into that second hole. And it's not going to hurt you at all. Open the door and peek in. Make sure you're hitting that secondary hole, which we are. And then you can just tighten your fitting up. As so. And I believe we are in there. Now, I probably need to figure out a way to get in there and get some of these shavings out. We got metal shavings down in between the inner and outer skin. I think if we just tip the whole oven forward, they'll all just fall out. But that should be a pretty easy fix. Now, you can't put your argon tube in yet. What you're going to hit right now is when you go down, you're going to hit your insulation, and I can feel it hitting that insulation right now. So we still need to poke through the insulation. You can use almost anything. If you've got a welding tungsten with a nice sharp point, it'll pierce right through it, or a drill bit. Use an 1/8 inch drill of the proper length. Make sure you use an aircraft drill because you're not going to make it through that with a standard drill. But let me get these shavings out, and I'll bring you back when we're ready to poke that insulation through. Okay, well, I tipped the oven forward, and actually I blew it out with an air hose while it was tipped, and get all the metal shavings out of there. You do have electrics in between the inner skin and the outer skin, so make sure you get all the metal shavings out of there. Now all that's left is to poke through the insulation, and I'm just going to use a piece of welding wire here at first, and I can feel that soft insulation there. And I'm just going to kind of twist and poke through. And I'm going to follow it up with a tungsten. I've got an 1/8 inch tungsten here with a nice sharp point on the end. And I'm going to poke that through. And kind of twist and turn my way through there. I know everything's lined up. And feels like we're through. And then I'm going to reach inside the chamber and just pull it the rest of the way through. And it's out of there. And now we can finally install our argon injector. And that just, you'll feel the pressure on it all the way through. But what you want to make sure of is inside that your ports are down in the chamber, which they are. And I'll move the camera and show you what you need to see. This is the hardest part of the installation, is getting this in. After this is in, we're all downhill from here. So we've got our tube in nice and square. Everything looks real nice, and we didn't force the the oven shell out of square when we were drilling one way or the other, because we kept the oven door closed when we did it. All right, but we've got an injector on. Let me show you that inner, and then we'll move on to the flow meter. Okay, well, I had to put a flashlight in there so you can see it, but there's the argon tube. I'm going to pull it in and out so you can see what it's doing. And you probably can't see it from here. I don't know whether the light's good enough, but the 4 ports on the tube are facing towards the corners of the chamber, and I feel that's important to get good coverage. So you can always clock your tube just by releasing the nut on the 90-degree fitting out on the outside, and you can clock your tube to make sure all 4 ports face towards the corners. Alright, so I'm turning it right now. I don't know whether you can see that or not. It's pretty dark in there, and I had to put a little flashlight in there so you can see what it's doing. But the ports are well below the ceiling, so we've got, we're real happy with the way that argon tube laid out. Okay, so again, from inside the oven, I wanted to get a close-up of this. Over there on the left, that is your sleeve that goes from the inner skin to the outer skin. And you want to make sure that's in place and that's engaged in the inner skin. And that gives you a guide to move that argon tube in and out. But you can barely see the fan in the background back there. And then there's a high limit switch over there on the right hand side. So that's the innards of your oven, but you want to make sure those are cleaned out because there is electrics in there. So make sure you get your metal shavings out of there. And our light today is courtesy of Mr. Craig Campbell. That's the flashlight he gave me at the bash. So it's a cool little bar LED. You can slip into some pretty tight spots and light it up for camera work or just for working. Alright, now we can go get the flow meter on. Okay, next up is your flow meter bracket, and I want you to peel your laser film off and remove these 2 top screws on the heatsink. And basically this piece is just going to slip right between the 2. And you're going to put those 2 screws right back in, and it's going to pinch this piece of sheet metal in between the heatsink and the control cabinet. And your kit comes with 10 feet of 1/4 inch poly tubing. It's pretty much a high temperature, high grade material that I buy. And all you want to do is come out of here and just make a very short loop over to the flow meter and use nice sharp cutters and cut your tubing very square. You could use a razor knife too. And from the injector you go to the top port of the flow meter, and it's just push to connect. And if you need to disconnect it, those little collars, you just push in the collar and you can release the tube anytime you want. So these are not super high pressure connections. These connections are good for 125 psi, but we're nowhere near that. And then the rest of your tubing here, whatever's left, we maybe used a foot, so that gives you 9 feet to get out of here, out of your flow meter, and you know, head over to your Argon bottle. And we give you one extra fitting for this other end here, so you can put that fitting in, and as long as you adapt out to 1/8 inch pipe thread, you're good to go. Put yourself a little valve or a little T or something over by your your welder's bottle or your flow meter or your regulator or whatever. But I'm going to warn you again, maximum pressure in there is 100 psi. You will explode that flow meter beyond 100 psi, so don't connect it to tank pressure. Make sure you're regulated. All right. Welding fittings vary so much, we don't include anything over by your welding bottle. But that is a complete installation on a Hotshot 360 Argon kit by American Rotary. All right, we'll talk about the availability of the Argon kits here real quick, and then we're going to close this video down. Okay, well that's it for the Argon. It's slightly more complicated than putting one on a BarZ Hotshot, but completely worth it. You know, I use Argon here in the shop personally. Even if my parts are getting around, I don't like cleaning scale, and Argon, you really don't use that much Argon. Everything is expressed in cubic feet an hour. Your bottle, this flow meter, and if you take your 360 cubic inch and convert it to cubic feet, you'd be surprised how little you're going to use. We use about 4 cubic feet an hour on the 360, and if you do your math on your bottle, you can run for like 49 hours on a tank of gas. So it's not as bad as you think it is. All right, I'm gathering lists for the BarZ Hotshots and for the American Rotary Hotshots. So far on the American Rotary side, I've only got 4. David Nekadom, Robert Kundig, Joseph Shepard, and John Ferguson. Over on the BarZ side, we've got a few: William Gray, Brent Meyer, Andy Walker, Stephen Brown, Bobby Lett, Michael Fruche, and Robert Madden. So if you're looking for an Argon kit for either a BarZ oven or an American Rotary oven, you need to specify which one you have, because they are not interchangeable. I could not make them interchangeable as hard as I tried. All right. So I think this is a good kit. I think we've covered all our bases, and I've already tested it. You guys can look back on the channel and see where I prototyped it, I installed it all, and I never showed you how to put it in, so I thought I'd do that. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and send an email if you're interested in an Argon kit.